Hi, everyone, I'm Dan Abrams, and this is Court Cam.
You ready to take your play?
Yeah! Kill all you! I hope you die in prison as well.
First up, we head to Louisville, Kentucky for a contempt of court hearing. The defendant, Suzanne Kraft, who's in court for allegedly violating a no-contact order against her neighbors, Michaela and Connie Pineda. A month earlier, the 52-year-old was charged with harassment and criminal mischief after allegedly writing a number of racial slurs on the Pineda driveway. Here you can see the perpetrator with what appears to be spray paint, then walking back to the Kraft property. Kraft was released on bond and ordered to stay away from the Pineda home, which is 2 doors down from her own. But when security cameras captured a woman pouring chemicals in the shape of a swastika onto the Pineda property, Kraft was called back into court.
I'm not saying that you had contact. I just know there's an allegation. And what I'm telling you is, if they can prove it, then you could very well end up back in jail.
The judge listens to testimony before deciding if the defendant violated the no-contact order. First, she hears from Kraft, who addresses the new allegations.
Are you innocent?
Yes, I'm innocent.
Is that you in the video?
No.
Is it even close to you in the video?
No.
The judge also hears from witnesses familiar with Kraft who have different opinions on the identity of the person in the surveillance footage.
That is not her. That's Susan Kraft.
For some witnesses, the deciding factor on whether it's Kraft in the footage is how she walks.
She doesn't walk girly. She's just in control of her arms and her legs. Susie's is more feminine.
Kraft's attorney vehemently argues his client is not responsible for the swastika.
That's not her.
Finally, after hearing the testimony, it's time for the judge to decide whether Kraft will walk out the door or straight into jail.
I believe it was her. I don't understand why she would, but knowing that there are cameras, but I believe she did it. It makes no sense to me any other way.
Kraft is sentenced to 7 days in jail and 7 days of house arrest. Since the ruling, the Pinedas have received multiple death threats, as well as bullets through the mail. The couple has found a hate crime. As for Kraft, she pled not guilty to the criminal mischief and harassment charges and is awaiting trial.
It felt good to shoot him. Those words came out of this defendant's mouth.
We're in San Antonio, Texas, for the trial of Otis McCain. The 31-year-old was charged with capital murder following a brazen attack on a police officer. This surveillance video shows the moment a man approached the parked cruiser of San Antonio Police Detective Benjamin Marconi.
Detective Marconi was driving a marked SAPD police car. He was wearing his police uniform, and he had made a traffic stop in front of police headquarters. At this time, while he was sitting in his car, this defendant came up from behind him and shot him twice in the head. Detective Marconi never even saw it coming.
Police had surveillance footage of someone matching McCain's description entering the police station the morning of the attack. The person in the video reportedly asked to talk to someone about child custody issues, but quickly left after being told it would be a while before an officer would be available. Police released that security footage to the public, and after a tip from an employee of a local auto shop, McCain was captured and arrested the next day, following a multi-agency manhunt. During a police interview, McCain stated he committed the crime out of anger and frustration for not being able to see his son.
I want to make the police satisfied, burned out too. I'm sorry, I apologize. That was the stupidest thing I've ever done in my life.
Despite having admitted to the act on video during a police interrogation, McCain pleaded not guilty. During the trial, his defense team argued the crime did not rise to the level of capital murder, alleging that Officer Marconi was not doing official police work at the time he was killed. Now, after an 11-day trial, McCain is about to learn his fate.
Verdict form. We, the jury, find the defendant, Otis Tyrone McCain, guilty of the offense of capital murder as charged in the indictment.
But as the jury is dismissed, McCain has an unusual reaction. He unbuttons, then untucks his shirt before sitting down. Then, when asked to stand up by Deputy Isidro Gonzalez, at first he refuses. Then, as he slowly stands up, delivers a blow to Gonzalez. With Deputy Gonzalez preparing to place him in cuffs, McCain cocks his arm back and then slams his elbow in the unsuspecting officer's face. McCain is then quickly tackled and subdued by multiple deputies just outside of the courtroom. Deputy Gonzalez returned to the courtroom a short time later, appearing to be okay. McCain was charged with assault on a peace officer for striking the deputy, but the charge pales in comparison to the ultimate outcome in the case. The following week, Otis McCain was sentenced to death for the murder of Detective Benjamin Marconi.
Can you indicate for us just approximately where he's seated, what he's wearing?
I don't want to look.
Next, we're in El Cajon, California, for the trial of Qasim Al-Hamidi, who's been charged with the first-degree murder of his wife, Shema Al-Awadi. 2 years earlier, the couple's then 15-year-old daughter discovered her mother badly beaten but still alive inside the family home.
As I remember, she was on her, kind of like on her side, her face face to the ground, and the blood was in her face.
A courtroom camera was not allowed to show the witness's face due to her age and privacy concerns.
I heard the ambulance from like across the street, and I put my mom down, and I ran to the street. I'm like, please just come in and get her.
The victim was rushed to the hospital, but died days later after being taken off life support. The death tore the family apart. Despite his sister's powerful testimony, the victim's son believed his father's alibi. Qasim Al-Hamidi claimed he was driving many miles away from the family home when his wife was attacked. But cell tower data placed his phone near the home at the time of the murder. During this early hearing, Al-Hamidi's own daughter refused to look at him from the witness stand.
Can you indicate for us just approximately where he's seated, what he's wearing?
I don't want to look.
Al-Hamidi maintained his innocence throughout the trial, as his attorney painted him as a loving father and husband who was devastated when he had to take his wife off life support.
He said, take my brain and implant it in her. I'll pay you any amount of money. Save her life.
The prosecution, however, claims it was not such a happy marriage, and Al-Hamidi was upset that his wife was planning on filing for divorce.
The person who did this is right here.
But with the absence of a murder weapon or any DNA evidence linking Al-Hamidi, it's hardly an open and shut case for prosecutors.
Guilty of the crime of murder.
After hearing the guilty verdict via translator, Al-Hamidi has a delayed reaction. First, an unnerving smile, then a hand gesture likely directed at the judge and jury, and finally, he appears to pray. But Al-Hamidi isn't the only one with a strong reaction to the verdict. From the gallery, his son cries out in his defense.
That's bullshit, Dad.
And has to be restrained by deputies. His father then yells out in Arabic. Meanwhile, it appears a woman in the gallery is praying. As both Al-Hamidi and his son are restrained and removed from the courtroom. Qasim Al-Hamidi was later sentenced to 26 years to life in prison for the murder of his wife, Shema Al-Awadi. Next, we go to the Miami-Dade courthouse, where Judge Catherine Pooler is presiding over a bond hearing. The defendant, Calvin Lloyd Griffith, allegedly broke into a local school and stole an employee's car. Griffith was arrested and is here on charges of grand theft, burglary, and trespassing. He also violated his probation from a previous car theft.
Calvin Lloyd Griffin Jr. on page 12. Good morning. Mr. Griffin is charged with burglary, petty theft, grand theft of a vehicle, and trespass. And he's on probation.
He's out on probation, Your Honor.
Yeah, I'm on probation on paper.
Okay.
Officer being here anyway because I smoke weed and cocaine. So the officer... I smoke weed and cocaine.
The court officials decide to cut Griffith's mic off to prevent him from talking over everyone.
So the officer...
Okay. You're Calvin Griffin?
Mr. Senator is the button press.
Oh, okay.
As Judge Pooler continues looking over the paperwork, Griffiths continues to try to get the attention of the judge.
Okay.
But with Judge Pooler unable to hear Griffith, he decides to try a different approach. Not impressed with Griffith's twerking abilities, the judge moves on with the case.
Suitor's requesting that Your Honor set the bond, but reset the case in division tomorrow because his actions violate his probation.
Judge Pooler agrees with the state attorney and sets Griffith's bond at $18,500.
Not go back there. You're not a student anymore. Okay? Thank you for coming in.
As the judge moves on to the next, less entertaining defendant, Judge Pooler looks back fondly on her time with Calvin Griffith.
I wonder if that last guy come back and teach us how to dance. He's a pretty smooth guy.
Next, we go to a hearing in Breckinridge County, Kentucky, where the defendant is not typically the one standing before the judge. The accused is Todd Pate, the former sheriff of Breckinridge County. He's charged with assault, operating under the influence, his second offense, criminal mischief, and leaving the scene of an accident. A year earlier, while driving his personal vehicle, Pate allegedly caused a crash, injuring 4 people. He then left the scene. When he was arrested later that night, his blood alcohol level was nearly twice the legal limit. Pate was released on bond and later retired from the sheriff's office. Today, the 51-year-old's in court to change his plea from not guilty to guilty, a decision he's already agreed to in writing. This will allow him to serve just 75 days in jail versus a possible sentence of up to 15 years if he went to trial and was found guilty of all charges. To make it official, all he has to do is say the words to Judge Janet Crocker.
At this time, is it your desire to change your plea from not guilty to guilty?
Do I have to answer that yes or no, or can I make somewhat of a statement that's
That is a yes or no answer, sir.
Will I have the opportunity to say anything further?
If it's your intention to change your plea from not guilty to guilty, certainly you'll have an opportunity to make any statement. But if it is not your intent to enter a guilty plea at this time, then I'm going to set your case for jury trial, and you're going to stop wasting my time and everybody else's time this afternoon.
Ma'am, I'm not trying to waste your time.
And is it your intention to enter a guilty plea at this time or not, sir?
No. Why am I wasting your time?
Mr. Chambers.
The judge ignores the question and checks in with the prosecution.
Why am I wasting your time?
Mr. Chambers, what is the Commonwealth's position at this time, sir?
Your Honor, we would move to revoke the defendant's bond at this time.
The judge orders a brief recess, perhaps hoping Pate's attorney can remind him he's already agreed to plead guilty. Back in court, the judge tries again.
Let's get back on the record and see if we can sort this out. At this point in time, what is Mr. Pate's decision with respect to his guilty pleas?
So I believe I'll let him answer that question if it pleases the court.
All right. So, Mr. Pate, I need to understand what it is that we're doing here today, Mr. Pate.
Yes, I had every intention of coming in here today and entering a guilty plea. It's difficult for me to enter a guilty plea for a lot of reasons, and I don't want this court to think that I am trying to minimize any responsibility that I had in this situation that occurred.
The problem is Pate doesn't agree with the assault charge, believes the prosecutor only added it because of Pate's position as sheriff, and because Pate rejected an earlier plea deal.
I feel like I'm being very much bullied into doing something that's not right. And I want this court to know that Todd Pate holds himself responsible for everything that he did. But it's hard for me to lay down and plead to felony charges that don't apply.
By this point, the judge has heard enough.
Is it your intention today to enter this guilty plea?
If I could address...
This is either a yes or no. Are you going to enter your plea or not?
Because everybody thinks it's funny. Let me just plea and get it over with for everybody. Plead to something that I absolutely do not feel good about, but I don't want you to try to send me to the penitentiary for years and years. You can sleep with it, I can sleep with it.
Pate's attorney looks frustrated. The judge is fed up with Pate's flip-flopping.
I think we're done. At this point in time, I think we're done. Where I think we are today is that on the one hand, the Commonwealth can enforce the terms of this agreement based on the execution. Mr. Pate, I'm talking at this point in time.
Okay, I'm sorry.
At this point in time, I'm going to sustain the Commonwealth's motion to revoke his bond. He will be taken into the custody and housed in the Breckinridge County Jail.
Your Honor, if I may speak to Mr. Chambers' motion to revoke the bond.
I've already ruled. I've already ruled at this point in time.
Ma'am.
We're done at this point in time. He's going into jail today.
Pate eventually pled guilty and accepted the terms of his sentence. 75 days in a county jail with credit for time served. Next, we're in Louisville, Kentucky for the arraignment of Brandon Lawrence. The 27-year-old was charged with violating a domestic protection order and attempted murder for allegedly nearly beating his uncle to death with a tire iron.
All right, Mr. Lawrence will enter not guilty plea for you today on these charges. Your bond is presently set at $250,000. Why are you laughing?
It's unclear whether Lawrence is laughing because he thinks the $250,000 bond is too high or too low. Either way, the judge is unfazed and moves on to discuss a proposed no-contact order that includes the defendant's own mother.
No contact?
Let's see, maybe she was a witness to this, so let's see.
Nobody was around, that's all.
This says...
But as the judge tries to sort out the details of the no-contact order, Lawrence interrupts her.
I'm going out of your courtroom.
I beg your pardon?
Yeah.
What did you say?
You can raise the bond, do what you want to. I'm going back to my cell.
Apparently, Lawrence doesn't have the time or patience for something as trivial as an attempted murder charge.
You can raise the bond, do what you want to. I'm going back to my cell.
Who is your attorney, sir?
Roper Cox.
Okay, are you going to call Mr. Cox on this?
Yeah, I sure am.
Okay. All right, so we'll enter not guilty plea.
The loud bang that catches everyone off guard is the sound of Lawrence punching the plexiglass divider as he heads back to his cell. After the outburst, the judge doubles down on Lawrence's original bond of $250,000.
Sorry, bonds increase to $500,000.
Brandon Lawrence will stand trial in 2022. That's it for this edition of Court Cam. I'm Dan Abrams. Thanks for watching.